Hey everybody, welcome into League of Our Own with myself, Goran, and Adam Blair. Adam, let's just get straight to the nitty-gritty, mate. We spoke about it last week. Would it be Tanah Boyd or Maire Martin taking over from Luke Metcalf at the Warriors in the 7 jersey? Andrew Webster's revealed his team to take on the Tigers on Sunday. He's gone with Tanah Boyd in the 7, Maire in the 14. What's your initial reaction? Is it the right call or the wrong call to pick Tanah Boyd?
Cheer, Goran. It's good to see you, brother.
What's happening, bro?
Cheer, brother. Cheer, brother. Hey, always special this time of night, man. I get to connect with you, bro, and talk rugby league, and so I think it's always a special time. I think right call. Again, I know we spoke about this last week, and there's been some pretty big conversations through the public anyway, and through our channels for sure, which has been great. And it's great to see people adding their opinions and having those conversations. My initial thoughts, I think it's the right decision. I think Tanah Boyd is the 7 moving forward for the Warriors. And I think, like you said, Maire Martin holds his place on the bench. I said it last week, and I know that we've said it to his detriment. He is a very versatile player, Maire Martin, and can cover a lot of positions. I think Tanah Boyd and what he's done throughout the year in New South Wales Cup and guiding them into the place and where they're getting to and the heights that they've played at, I think his kicking game will be the difference for the Warriors when we talk about both Maire and him. So I think it's the right call. I think there's a lot of fans that think that's the right call as well. And I'm jumping on the back of the fans because we all know, don't we, Goran?
What do we know?
Because we're the coach. We're the coach. We all know that Tanah Boyd is going to be the 7 moving forward, and that's what we can see with the team that they've named. And I'm excited to see Tanah Boyd in the colours first and foremost, and see what he can do at the Warriors and how he can guide this team. Some great leaders around him, some players that are in form as well. But it'll be good to see how he steps into the NRL space and how he can implement what he's been able to do down at New South Wales Cup, build some connections with these Warriors first grade boys and see where they get to.
13 appearances in New South Wales Cup. He's yet to lose. He's averaging 300 metres with his kicking game. He runs for about 70 metres on average. He's got an 80 or 81% conversion success rate, which definitely helps. It's probably the right call. And as you say, we discussed this last week, but what a lofty and privileged place to be, the New Zealand Warriors, because you've got 2 high-quality options. It's not like Luke Metcalf goes down and you're scrounging around in the kit bag looking for a replacement half. You've got Tanah Boyd, who's got 6 seasons of experience at the Gold Coast Titans, and Maire Martin, who's he's played his way to a grand final with the Cowboys, as we spoke about last week. I mean, I feel like there's no wrong answer here. If you played Boyd or Martin, you get 2 quality individuals in the 7 jersey replacing Luke. So I don't know. I'm not sure which one would serve the Warriors best. At the moment, I feel like Maire Martin has proven himself with his versatility that he's probably the best option on the bench because he can cover a multitude of positions. They don't have that Dylan Walker, as we spoke about last week. So it has to be Tanah Boyd. And with that experience coming through the New South Wales Cup and coming through with the winning culture, winning mentality, it just seems right that Andrew Webster would transplant New South Wales Cup half to NRL. The thing that sort of had me second guessing that approach was watching a clip from 6 Tackles with Gus. Phil Gould, the man who put the air in the football. Like he knows a lot about the great game, Blairy. And when he was asked the question whether the Warriors would trip and fall and not make the grand final, is their premiership window basically closed? And he said, well, no, I'm not going to write them off because they've got a half in Maire Martin. And he rated him highly, and he said that is the guy that the Warriors could sort of hitch their wagon to in the absence of Luke Metcalf. And he said that the bigger loss is the loss of the co-captain Mitch Barnett. So if you've got somebody like Gus backing Maire Martin and not Tanah Boyd, I think the people who support Martin, they've got a point. As do the people who've supported Tanah Boyd.
Yeah, we can't stop raving about how important Maire Martin is, and I reckon 2-3 episodes ago, I think I said that if he's not a starting half, he's not in my team. That was my opinion, and I think he is a starting half. But we've spoken about the problem that he has, and the Warriors do have, is that his versatility can fill a lot of gaps if there is an injury. I guess the hype, I want to see if Tanah Boyd can live up to the hype of the fans, That's going to, the fans that are backing him to be the 7. Because when you think about that 7 jersey, and we all know who's worn that jersey pre-Tanah Boyd, you've seen Luke Metcalf step up to the challenge. Didn't start well in Vegas, but went on to being Dallin leader until he got injured. So there's pressure with that 7 jersey at the Warriors. The 2 SJs.
Yeah, that's right.
Stacey Jones, Sean Johnson, and then Luke Metcalf, and now Tanah Boyd. So there's a huge expectation on the 7s at the Warriors, and he's now that person stepping into that jersey. Can he take them on to the grand final? Can he lead them around the park? Can his kicking game be good enough at NRL level? Can his goal kicking help in times when they're under pressure? And can the team connect quickly to move on into this, I guess, the later stage of this competition, because this is when the games mean the most. And you spoke about Gus Gould. He knows a lot about rugby league, and he's seen a lot of players come and go, and he most probably has a point about Maire Martin, and we tend to agree as well, man. So I think it's a great opportunity for Tanah Boyd to take and grab and see where this goes.
I'm glad you mentioned the 2 SJs at the Warriors. Would that help or hinder Tanah Boyd? Because you've got the weight of expectation taking the 7 jersey at the only Kiwi NRL club. You've got 2 absolute bona fide greats of the game in Stacey Jones, assistant coach at the Wars, Sean Johnson, who helps out. He's sifting around. You've got Luke Metcalf, who was leading the Dally M, before it went behind closed doors, the voting. Does that help or hinder? Does it create more pressure, or does it alleviate that kind of pressure when you've got that greatness that surrounds you?
Well, you would think that since Tanah Boyd has turned up to the club, he would have sat in Stacey Jones's presence and soaked in all the knowledge that he has had. You spoke about Luke Metcalf, and I think he's walked towards the pressure. We've seen with some of his try celebrations the way that he's stood up under a bit of adversity, under a bit of pressure, and he's even spoken himself about how he wanted this jersey because he wanted the pressure of feeling what it's like. So is Tanah Boyd someone similar to him? Yet to be seen, but I definitely think there's pressure. I definitely think there's pressure with that 7 jersey. It's such an important jersey or a number at that club, because you are a club in a country, and one country that look towards the 7 jumper to get them around the park, and Tanah Boyd gets that opportunity. So fingers crossed for him and the Warriors that he grabs it with 2 hands and he just embraces the challenge and goes after it.
Because the worst thing that could happen here is that they continue to stumble and falter. So at the moment, the Warriors have had 2 wins in their last 5. So defeats to the Raiders and the Broncos, and who did they lose to last up?
Panthers as well.
Yeah, Panthers as well. So, yeah, they're sort of trending in a downward direction, unfortunately. And so the blowtorch is applied if they aren't getting results with Tanah Boyd. Then what happens, So
then that's when they start asking questions.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not only do you have the pressure within the 4 walls, you have the pressure of
external,
the fans, the fans, the media. Then we start talking. They all go back to is it our year? And we go back to the question that you asked me last week: can they win the grand final without Luke Metcalf? So if they don't get a result this weekend, it's not all doom and gloom, but it just adds extra pressure to the club, to the players, to the people, because there's not only going to be pressure within, it's the outside noise that's going to start taking over. So it's a challenge. I think it's a challenge. I think there's some great players around him to guide him. But like let's be honest, it's a step up from New South Wales Cup. It's a step up from New South Wales Cup. The speed of the game is so much quicker. The players are obviously elite, and you're coming up against some of the best players in the world, which is always going to be a challenge.
Well, look, whatever happens, we ride in behind you, Tanah Boyd, and we wish you all the best for your first ever match as a New Zealand Warriors player up against the Tigers on Sunday. A couple of other interesting inclusions, if you can call it that. Well, maybe it's not so interesting, the fact that Taine Tuopiki is in the fullback position for an injured Charles Nickel-Klukstar. I was quite happy to see that because I guess the other alternative would be you move Roger Tuivasa-Sheck off a wing and he plays at fullback, but then you've got a guy who's kind of consolidating his position on the wing and locking in that wing spot full time in Roger, and then Taine has to play on the wing in his spot? Like, I think it would be too much jiggery-pokery and sort of shuffling the deck chairs too much. I like the fact that they've just put Taine in his favourite position, and there's not a great deal of disruption to that fullback position, the wing position. And speaking of the wing, what is going on with Dallin Watene-Zelezniak's recovery?
He's back.
He was slated to be out until round 22 with his ankle injury. And here we are. He's listed to return in round 19. So I don't know what he's drinking, but it must be that magic water or something out of Mount Smart. Yeah. Back in round 19, listed to play on the wing. What problems does that bring up? Because last week we spoke about a potential Warriors backline through this period where there was supposed to be no Dallin, no Luke Metcalf, and no Chance Nickel-Klukstar. And I had Kurt Capewell in the centres and pushing Adam Pompey out to the wing. Now, in Dallin's appearances so far this year, he hasn't set the world on fire, has he? Is he still the first choice wing? I suppose the question's been answered by Andrew Webster. He's rushed him straight back into the starting side. But people out there are starting to become agitated with this guy's efforts and his reluctance to stay out on his sideline and his propensity to jam in. Is he still the top guy?
I think purely on experience, yeah. I think experience-wise, Goran, he's most probably their most experienced winger. I know you spoke about form. I think he's been in and out of it. He hasn't been consistent. I think, the long stint on the sidelines to start the season most probably set him behind a lot of the other players that have played, and they were doing a great job at it. Comes back in, couldn't string some consistent performances together, another niggling injury, and then we're seeing him back on the field again. So really hard to try and build any consistency around your performance when you haven't spent enough time on the field. I think purely if you look at their side that they've put together for this week's game, there's a lot more experience on the field to cover the missing players, i.e. obviously Kurt Capewell that's in Origin, Chuttons that's at the back, that's not available. So I think when it comes to like the most experienced winger, that's why I think, my opinion, he finds himself on the wing because of his experience and his knowledge. Yes, he definitely has to be better. He definitely has to be better. They're moving into the pointy end of the competition. There's most probably players down below knocking on the door. And guess, again, like everyone else, and you just said it, people are asking the question if he is the right person to be playing in those positions. And you said it last week, you had Kurt Capewell in the centres and Adam Pompey moving to the wing. And I think that's a safe choice as well. I think it's his experience that holds his spot, that he puts him in that picture.
Yeah, it's a good point because, he brings, what is it now, more than 200 first grade games of experience. And if you don't have Chance, then you need somebody to help out alongside Roger in that back three. And it's a with Rocco Berry in the mix as well, relatively inexperienced. So
well, you got Roger on one wing, Dell on the other. You got Pompey and centers, and Rocco Berry, and then you got Tane at the back. So I think the important thing when you're putting sides together is understanding who's around them to support and guide. And again, you can go through their forward pack of who they've put in there. They've brought Jackson Ford into there. They put Marata in the spots too, and I think they're just tightening up the ships. Really looking to get a result, I think. Really looking to get a result this week to put them back in a position to be competing consistently again. And if you look at their bench, very inexperienced. Some of those younger boys that have been playing pretty well, I think, this year, have found themselves on the bench. But I think he's looking for a reaction on the back of the loss before the bye up against the Bronx, and then really looking forward to, I reckon they've sat down in the bye and gone, all right, what does our back end of the season look like? Because I think they're done on their buys. I think their buys are all done. So I reckon they've really sat down and gone, all right, how do we skin this cat in the back end of the season? What's our best team look like that we can put on paper? And let's try and really knuckle down and finish in this top four, because I think that's the best position for any team competing in this competition. You want to be in the top four to give yourself a chance.
Yeah, that's right. You have the safety net, don't you? You lose in the first week, and then you know that you've got week 2 finals footy. And when you look at the Warriors run in, they've got 9 games left, and 6 of those matches are against opposition outside the top 8. So it's a relatively gentle run in, but yeah, you don't want to continue to keep stumbling and faltering as they have over the last sort of 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. So, yeah. But just going back to Dallin and his miraculous recovery, something that we talked about a couple of weeks ago when he had the injury was the extent of the ban for Scott Sorensen. Now, you and I both felt like it was a reactionary thing from the judiciary and the match review committee to sit him down for 2 weeks. Now, if Dallin Watene-Zelezniak is only missing 1 game, why is Scott Sorensen still on the sidelines? Because it's not as bad as what was first thought in terms of DWZ's injury. So, and it kind of leads me into the next point that I'd like to make, which is something that slipped under the radar for us last week as we were having the discussion about whether the Warriors could still make grand final day and who was going to take Luke Metcalf's 7 jersey, was the return of the cheese, Brandon Smith. He was named in the 22 jersey for the Rabbitohs and then started at hooker in their loss to the Manly Seagulls. And he got injured upon his return, been out of the game for, damn near 300 days, and then gets done in a tackle by Matt Lodge. And the reason I'm sort of connecting the dots here is because Matt Lodge has been accused by many fans of hitting him with a hip drop tackle. But Brandon Smith has gone into bat for his mate and said, look, it was just an accident. And then the match review committee have said, there's nothing to see here. So it's very confusing, mate. And I've watched that tackle a bunch of times, the one that injured Brandon Smith and has put him out of the game until I think round 25. And Matt Lodge's knee, his thigh, his buttock, his side is basically on the ground before his armpit and chest make contact with Brandon Smith's leg. And you've got guys like, and I know he's not a fan favourite here in New Zealand, but Blocker Roach in commentary is saying, oh, it's a hip drop for sure, 100%. And Warren Smith, the commentator, is agreeing and saying, we've got to get it out of the game. What's it going to take? Is it going to take 6 or 8 or 10 weeks suspension? But then you've got the match review committee saying, well, it's not. So nobody knows what a hip drop tackle is anymore, mate. Nobody knows.
It's so hard to know what everyone's thinking now, because these 2 incidents, I reckon, were quite, I'm not going to say similar, but I didn't think the hip drop on Dallin was as bad and warranted the timing on the sidelines, obviously, because Dallin is back. And so to the Matt Lodge one, I think, but it's just really confusing. And if you've got some of these so-called experts talking about on TV saying that's a hip drop, but then you've got your match review panel who, I don't know who they are, I don't know if they're former players in there as well, that are saying that it's not. Well, then how do you think the fans feel when some of their players or if it's one of their marquee players sitting on the sidelines for, what we're saying with Brandon Smith. And it's a hard one because for Brandon, and I get it, you want to stick up for your mates and everything's like no one purposely goes out there going to injure anyone. You get caught in awkward positions most of the time in the game. You get sloppy, you get lazy, you fall around the legs, whether it's your hip landing on top of the back of the ankles, and you don't want to do it. And I get that. But in this case here, you've got players coming out and now protecting players and saying, well, It wasn't a hip job. He's one of my mates. Like, leave him alone. Let's just play on. The footy goes on. It was an accident. And the hardest thing for me is that Brendan now sits on the sideline again for an extended time when he's just come back from an ACL injury. I get it. This is rugby league. These things happen. But we go back to the whole hip drop tackle. It's confusing. It's very blurred and no one knows what it is. And we've just said it. Commentary, match review have pretty much commentary that said yes, it's a hip drop. Get out of the game. Match review going, no, it's not.
It's so confusing, man. Because when Dallin and Scott came together, it was pretty much glossed over by Glenn Lama and Monty Beetham. Like it was just a thing that happened, It was a tackle. He got injured, and then the Panthers scored while he was injured, and that was unfortunate. Yeah. But it wasn't like, oh, look at this horrible tackle. Yet the match review committee say it was nasty and you can have a 2-match ban. And now you've got outraged commentators watching this vision and the match review. I mean, I think the MRC got it right with Brandon Smith and Matt Lodge. It's just an unfortunate accident which puts the cheese on the sidelines for another 6 weeks or whatever it is. So, everybody's getting it wrong. But how do we get on the same page here?
Well, it's funny because Glenn and Monty, I think we are back home in New Zealand. The game is seen differently. I think our people see it for what it is. And they call it how they see it, They call it how it see it. I think the people over here in Australia are real quick to make an assumption on something that maybe sometimes isn't the right answer.
So like headline
or the right
seeking,
thing that they're saying. So like for anything, for instance, the Lockie Galvin stuff, anything, the Benji Marshall, which we'll get into. You know what I mean?
Benji.
They are quick to throw things out there for people just to go grab, and then here's your opinion. So I think for our people back home, we see it for what it is, and we speak through it. We don't just throw things out there and just go, that is what it is. Yeah. We actually talk about what we just saw before we make an assumption on what it is. Yeah. And I think that's the difference with how we see it back home and what they see over here, because they understand how big the game is in Australia and that they know that they have a voice and they can say these things and put it out there for people to talk about. But at the same time, it's not always correct, which we know that in rugby league, eh? Yeah. We know that in rugby league.
We sure do, yeah. I mean, it's a great point that you made, because both Fox and Nine, they've got these huge websites and they want to drive people to them, and lots of clickbait articles and things like that, and they turn them around really quickly. And so before you know it, there'd be an article on Fox League saying, oh, Blocker Roach had this to say, and Warren Smith supported him and said, Matt Lodge, what a grab, or, look, I'm paraphrasing and putting words in the mouth, whatever. Yeah. But it's all about driving people to the video and to the website and getting them to click. And
was it a hip drop? No, I don't think so. Was it an accident? Yeah. Dallin, was that a hip drop? I don't think so. But it is what it is. It's been called that. But I think the lines are blurred for all the fans, and now, this is what we have. We don't have an idea what a hip drop tackle is.
Well, somebody at the NRL, whether it's Graham Annesley or one of his cronies, needs to come out again at one of his briefings and say, this is what a hip drop is, because, and show us the vision and explain to us explicitly why Scott Sorensen winds up on the pine for 2 weeks, or sitting in the stands for 2 weeks, and Matt Lodge doesn't get a charge. Now, you and I can both agree that both tackles were fine, but explain to us fans so we can kind of get some kind of grasp on what is and what is not a hip drop, because it's so bloody confusing. Anyway, look, let's get back to the Warriors and the Tigers, because I want to spend a little bit of time talking about your old buddy Benji Marshall. And you, having been a former West Tigers player yourself, you know the scrutiny that the club is under, especially given their history, their recent history with wooden spoons, and how the Tigers have been travelling with Tim Sheens. He leaves his post, Benji takes over, and results, well, they haven't been going according to plan. And not just the results, but players leaving the club. You already mentioned Lockie Galvin. We see now that Talon De Silva has opted away from your Newcastle Knights and he's gone to the Eels mid-season. So he plays this weekend against the Panthers. All kinds of nonsensical articles that have been written talking about Adam Dewey, yeah, exactly, having a set to at training. Like, oh man. And I think as part of that article, they said that the Tigers CEO had approached Paul McGregor to come on as an assistant coach, which Benji Marshall poo-pooed, which apparently was not true. They went on NRL 360 and said this is not the case. So there is, like, every single day of the week, there is something negative around the Tigers and Benji Marshall. And you know him really well. And I know him from a couple of casual interactions when he was here in New Zealand, and what I've seen on the field in the past, and what I've seen when he was on Fox, and he had a TV show called Benji at one point. And he's a fun-loving guy, and he's really relaxed. Lately, so wound up, so stressed out. It's like a completely different Benji Marshall. What have you made of how he's been handling the criticism, the constant attacks? Has it changed the Benji Marshall that you know and love?
Oh man, you spoke about it, Goran. I think from the moment I spent my time there to the time I left, and I know there's been a lot of players in the same boat, from the moment they turned up or the moment they got told to leave, that there's always been some sort of headline around the West Tigers. And it just so happens to be it now, obviously Benji Marshall's the head coach, and we obviously know Benji Marshall. Well, I know him as a person, as a player that I played alongside, and the passion that he has for the West Tigers and how he wants to grow that space. But they're continuously being bashed in the media consistently week in, week out. Whether you said it, Lockie Galvin, some of their young talent coming through their pathways, Talon De Silva, the Adam Dewey incident, their performances, and then obviously getting that win on the weekend, and then boys coming out and saying that was for the coach. So, and then you got obviously the CEO talking about all the stuff. So I just, I'd love to be a year where there isn't anything to do with talking about the West Tigers or them making decisions around players and coaches and things coming up in the media. I don't think it's ever stopped, Goran. When did I go there? 2012. I don't think it's stopped since then. And I haven't seen it improve, to be honest, in the media space. Benji's slowly managing to get his team around him. I think he's frustrated. I think he looks frustrated and must be more so annoyed with the outside noise trying to spin, I guess, news so that I don't know whether they're trying to derail or find something within, or they're trying to move people on to find different people to come in. I just don't get it. I don't understand what the big problem is there and why they always seem to find themselves in the media about anything. And I get it. It's a ruthless competition. It's a ruthless business. People's careers are on the line consistently, year in, year out, whether it's a player or it's a coach. They're always being marked on performances, results, which is what the business is about. And, you can see players playing for him, but at the same time, people are still trying to bring people down around them, whether it's speaking about the young development of these kids coming through and losing these players, or the CEOs talking about things on 360. So I feel like he's trying to hold a straight face with trying to get results and get performances and keeping the group tight and buying into what he wants, and then trying to fend off the media consistently. it's hard for him. I reckon it's hard for him. It doesn't stop.
One of the things that I'd like to ask you about now is something that many of us won't ever experience. We're not going to be NRL players. We're not going to be NRL head coaches. We don't know anything of what that kind of pressure comes with in terms of, fans in the stand not being happy, booing you if results don't go well. But it's more than just the 80 minutes of a weekend. Nowadays with social media, you can be under constant attack at all hours of the day and night. People have direct access to you. I don't know if people have social media managers, or maybe Benji Marshall's running his own Instagram or whatever he's got. But if you pick up your phone and you're seeing constant criticism, if you're receiving direct messages from fans, if you like, saying you're not good enough, or worse, lots worse, how hard is that to just set aside? And you've got to be so incredibly mentally strong to be able to set it aside and then focus on your work. Because look, I'm not saying that I'm like you, but when I used to be on TV, you'd get the odd message and people saying, "Oh, you effed that up," or you look like shit today, or whatever. And it might be one message out of like 5, but you dwell on it. So what's it like when you times that by 1,000?
Well, that's Goran. I take my time in the game and I wind it back. And I reckon the hardest times of my football career was at the West Tigers, purely because of the pressure, not only that you put on yourself as an individual, as a player, as an elite athlete, but the pressure from the outside. And I think that the way you get around that, and I know it ends up affecting you anyway, but the way you get around that is to surround yourself with strong people around you, like your support network. But it becomes a continual battle, day in, day out, week in, week out, because, again, I say it, the game is based on results and your performance. If you don't perform, people find ways to bring you down. And it typically comes not only from the fans, from the media, which is what the West Tigers are seeing now. And, I go there as a marquee player. Yeah, maybe I don't live up to the standards of the people outside. We don't get the results. They look for the senior player on the field who's getting what they think is the most money and most paid. You should be standing up. I think the hardest thing for that, and then I'm thinking about Benji Marshall now, is the people that hurt the most is the family, and he's got a wife, he's got beautiful kids. They're the ones that have to live with it more every single day. Yes, he does, but he gets to be around some of his closest mates. He gets to be around a group of young men that are professional athletes that are living the dream. The people that hurt the most are literally your loved ones, and they would have to go to school. They would have to see these things. They would have to hear these things. Parents are judging you on what they see every day in the media. They're not judging you on the type of person you are, or the character you are as a person. They're judging you purely on what they're hearing. Because a lot of these people that comment, whether it's media or whether it's just fans, they don't know Benji Marshall as a person and what he's like. They only see him for what he has. So the hardest thing, Goran, and I go back to it, it is either your partner or wife, your kids that hurt the most, because they're the ones getting questioned every single day. When you're at work and they're at school, or your wife's or your partner's at a job, and they're asking them, "Oh, why is he doing this?" or "Why is it this? Why is that?" Because they've just heard people talking about it. So it's one of the hardest challenges as a rugby league player, and I would think as a coach as well, to be able to keep your family grounded, but also the perception of what people think of you without even knowing who you are as a person. And I reckon I dealt with that for 3 years at the West Tigers, where, it's your perception as a person rather than who you are, and personally know. So, people could call you a grub. You know what I mean? And yes, I played the game on the line, and I challenged the players every time they carried the ball. But if you knew me as a person growing, and you do,
I do.
I'm not that person.
You're
man.
a
I'm
lovely
lover.
guy.
I'm a lover.
Hand on
yes.
heart, mate. You're one of the best people I know, mate.
So
absolutely.
So I think sometimes people create opinions on you on what they see, either as a coach or as a player, and that's how people's perception see you, which is the challenge you got to be with every single day as a professional athlete.
Well, I'd like to go back in time with my time machine and tell all those people who gave you shit back in 2012, 13, whenever it was, to stuff off. Leave him alone, because Adam Blair is a lovely guy, and I'd go into bat for you every day of the week, mate. But, like if we're looking at Benji Marshall and you talk about the impact that it has on his family, the wife and the kids, I'm just thinking of the kids straight away, because kids are a-holes, mate. And if they get hold of something, then they will be ripping on those kids day after day after day. They will make school life very, very difficult, man.
Well, it's the same conversation about, obviously, the two fathers that have two sons playing in the NRL. You know, Ricky Stewart and Shane Flanagan. The pressure that has on them two. But I heard Ricky Stewart speaking about it.
You could extend it out to Arthur
sisters,
as well.
The Arthur boys, you know what I mean?
When Brad Arthur was coaching the Eels.
So I think the people that it does affect the most, man, are definitely the mothers of those kids, your brothers and sisters that aren't professional athletes, and then that's where it affects. So it ends up affecting the family more so than the individual, which you become. Obviously, you're part of the family, So it's one of the toughest sports going. I get it, but people don't understand how much work goes into it every single day. It's a lifetime of commitment. It's a lifetime of sacrifice that you have to make. You miss a lot of growing up of your children. You miss a lot of the important moments. And people just think because they see what you deliver on field or what you say in the media, that's what you're judged on. And I reckon it's pretty harsh.
I reckon he will relish the opportunity to come over here this weekend.
Home.
Get back home to Aotearoa amongst more family, extended family and friends, and play up against the Warriors with his Tigers team, man. Like a little bit of a sanctuary, if you like, here in New Zealand.
It'll be a breath of fresh air, Goran.
100%.
Breath of fresh air, being able to go home. And I think for a lot of those Tigers boys as well, there's a lot of Pacific boys in there, some Kiwi boys as well, that will be going home to see family. And sometimes going over and doing an early couple of days before the game can kind of bring these boys together in these important times. And someone like Benji, I reckon, can see that. And it's not only going to be beneficial for him, but also his teammates. So walking out of the airport, stepping off the tarmac, and then smelling the beautiful air of Aotearoa, man, how good.
Yeah, but don't talk about getting to New Zealand early, because then the journos in Australia will be saying, he's skiving off the Tigers.
Holiday.
Yeah, exactly. Much like last year when he went to Fiji in the bye round. Oh, how dare you, Benji. So, look, come on back home to New Zealand, Benji. We'll have you, mate. We'll look after you, but not on Sunday afternoon when the Warriors beat your team. Okay, Blairy, it's time for our weekly comedy segment called Betcha This Happens for round 19 last week. We laughed, didn't we, when the Bulldogs were up 18-0 and then the Broncos roared past them 22-18. So we fell over at the first hurdle.
Saves us sitting through the pain, though, just in case.
Can I be honest about things? I was watching the game, and with about 30 minutes, 25 minutes to go, I looked at the scoreboard. My wife says, "Are you coming to bed?" And I was like, it's 18-0. I can't see too much more happening here. It's a Bulldogs win. Went to bed. Woke up in the morning. First thing I did, picked up my phone, checked the score, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, they set me in my seat for a little bit longer for the rest of that game. My TV was on, and I thought about the same thing going to bed. But I had a feeling that something was changing here through the momentum of the game, and there they go, man. They come home strong. They were quality.
Yeah, so we got 3 from 5 last week. Hoping for a lot better, as we always say on Betcha This Happens for round 19. Sharks are paying $1.62 to beat the Dolphins. Dolphins without Cody Nikarima on backing the Sharks at home. Blairy, your Knights on the Betcha app are paying $3.90.
Make your money, bro.
Against the Melbourne Storm. Melbourne Storm $1.26. Tell me right here, right now, why I should back the Newcastle Knights without Kalen Ponga.
Well, you're going to make your money back, so that they're going to win. I think, to be honest, besides Kalen Goran, I think this is the strongest Knights team they've put on the paddock this year, to be honest. I think you think about what we've been able to unravel with Fletcher Hunt. He is a player that can play so many different positions, and yeah, he's no Kalen Ponga, but we've seen purely the way that he plays. He plays with a lot of heart and competes in there. But I think if they've all got all their superstars in those positions, they've got Jacob Saifidi back there. You've got Leo Thompson coming back, so they've really strengthened up the middle of their park. Dylan Lucas, Kai Pearce-Pause. You've got Tyson Frizzell in the middle of the pack, and I think if there's ever going to be an opportunity for Newcastle to stand up at home at McDonald Jones Stadium on Saturday afternoon, it'll be close to a sellout, I reckon. Definitely, it's going to be this Saturday, and they'll go after it, bro. We've got to go there.
Okay, all right. You've convinced me.
Even though, you know, I was a former player of the Melbourne Storm, I back this team that's been put together at the Knights to go out there and actually compete, bro. Compete.
All right. Well, look, last week backing all the favourites didn't do us any favours, so let's go the Knights. Paying $3.90. All right, we move on, mate. And great sales pitch as well. Well done, mate.
Pulled your leg.
Yeah. Dragons, $2.50. Sydney City Roosters, $1.53. Sam Walker, the unpredictable Sam Walker, is back in the 7, which moves Hugo Savala into the 6. Sandon Smith is out of the mix. I reckon the Roosters bounce back after a disappointing effort against the Tigers. Bulldogs are away to North Queensland Cowboys. Dogs $1.44. Cowboys $2.80. Bulldogs, you'd think, would be strengthened by Crichton and King and company. Burton, I think, is back in the halves. Galvin on the bench. Bulldogs.
Bit of a kick up the bum from Serraldo. They'll turn up better than what they were.
Bulldogs to beat the Cowboys. Sunday afternoon, Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart. Warriors to beat the Tigers in a close one.
Oh, yeah, close one, I reckon, too. Yep.
Yeah. This is a difficult one for me. Combank Stadium, Eels and the Panthers. Panthers, I think Ivan Cleary has named all of his origin stars in an extended bench. Whether they play or not sure. And that really could dictate the outcome of the game. I wonder if he leans towards resting some, if not all of those players. And if he does that, then I think the Eels are favourites. I'm backing them at $3.30. Panthers paying $1.33.
Yeah, that's always a hard one when you see them on the extended bench. They're superstars after Origin, and whether they're going to be backing up or not. But yeah, I reckon, bro. Para, give them a crack, man.
Big brother, little brother. It's Gold Coast Titans paying $3.50, and the Brisbane Broncos $1.30. I think the Bronx are starting to come good at the right time of the season. I'm backing the Broncos, and that's a 7-leg multi, Blairy, paying $84.80. I'll put $1 on that, and we'll see if we have any more success.
Did you put $10 on last week?
I did.
And then you've gone from $10 to $1.
Yeah, but I can put $1 on and win nearly 80. You know, like the odds last week were so low that I felt like I needed to put more money in to get... You understand how it works.
Bet responsibly. Nice.
That's what we do, mate. Very, very responsibly. Dollar bets here on League of Our Own with Goran and Blairy. Blairy, awesome to see you, mate. Thanks so much for your time. And good luck for the weekend, and can't wait to see the Warriors with Tanah Boyd in the 7 jersey, eh?
Yeah, thank you, brother. Always great time of the night, man, and appreciate all your help and all your work that you do for us and our fans as well. Jump on board, subscribe, like our stuff, share it out, comment, man, and it's them that drive us to do what we do, man.